What was it about Inside Out that made you want to be a part of the story?
Well, Pete Docter, the creator, talked about how, as a father, he was very interested that his daughter, when she was little, would show up when people came over for dinner, and she'd do a tap dance and be like, "Hello, here I am," and she was full of joy. But then when she turned 11, it seemed to go away, and she got very remote, and she would put her hair across her face, and she got very shy. And as a father, he was heartbroken and said, "What happened to my daughter's joy? I want to go inside and find out." So while the external is about the life of a child, of a 13-year-old girl, or in this case 11, Joy is the main character, and she's a parent. She's trying to protect her child, and in the first movie, keep her kid happy, and needs to learn about herself in order to help her kid.
What was the biggest challenge for then the second film, trying to expand? Because obviously puberty does change a lot of things. So what was it for you adding that, adding the many more different emotions?
Well, at Pixar, if you have an idea for a sequel, it has to be sequel-worthy, meaning they have to decide that this is a deep enough idea that needs to be thought about and told a story told about. So Kelsey Mann, the director, had this idea from his own childhood of being a teenager and how anxiety can really take over. Originally, and then I came on as the writer and totally related to that. I was an anxious teenager. I'm an anxious adult, and originally it was just anxiety who was arriving, and then we had the idea to bring in more emotions, and then we had to prove to Pete Docter why that's what's possible in the world. You have world rules, right? You have to show where have they been, but it really felt real to that age and that moment of your life when you can get overwhelmed by your emotions and you suddenly feel like a different person. And so what it all comes down to is, does this feel true? Does this feel authentic? As an artist, are you bringing something very vulnerable about yourself to this work? And then what's interesting is the more specific you get, the more it ripples out into universal. And a lot of writers get mixed up about that. They think you want to stay universal and archetypical to reach a lot of people, but in fact you want to do the opposite, and you want to get as specific as possible about your experience, and then people will connect and relate and feel like you see them.
Is that something you would go a little further with that? Because I was always told, like, if you're not willing to look in the mirror, you can't be a writer or any kind of artist. Is that so? So when you get the younger artists, you're just saying, just keep focused on yourself, look inward to tell your story.
Yeah, I mean, every great piece of art, be it writing a movie, painting, whatever, has that vulnerability of the artist being the brave one. On my podcast, we call it the lava. You kind of walk into something that feels like it might burn you up, but in fact, it's the thing that will set you free and connect you to other people. But it's hard to do. I mean, when you're writing, I always want to push to something that makes me feel very uncomfortable, almost embarrassed to admit, feel very, very vulnerable, to bring that out and put it out into the world on a piece of paper. That's when you know you're right on it. And your brain will do a lot of things to keep you from it because it feels very dangerous. Survival instinct kicks in. It'll start telling you, oh, that's cliche, that's too obvious, all those judgment words. Sometimes when I work with students, I'm like, if your brain starts saying that, you better go do a writing exercise and go right at it, because there might be something bubbling underneath.
Because you're teaching screenwriting, which is what I love about this. Because what I do. How has it helped you in your own artwork, though? Seeing what their struggles, maybe your students, translated when you write your own scripts.
Well, I mean, for Inside Out, we had Riley's crew, who were a bunch of 13, 14, 15, and one 16-year-old girl, and they would watch what we were doing when we got to a screening, and they would give us notes about what felt real, what didn't feel real. I knew what it felt like to be a parent. I knew what it felt like to have anxiety. I was an anxious 13-year-old girl, but that was a while ago. We needed to make sure it still was what they were experiencing. They live in a different world than I lived in, and they were really honest and very brave.